You know, something that I've discovered in life is that if there's any endeavor that I'm doing in my life that I want to be successful at, there's one attribute that I must have that greatly increases my chances of being successful.
It makes such a difference in being able to do the things that are important to us and getting where we really want to go.
Yeah. Well, hey everybody, I'm Bill.
And I'm Elizabeth. Live simple,
Live free.
and as we have talked about this, we've realized that this is so important. Whether we're talking being successful in a business, or even more importantly, a marriage or a walk with the Lord, our relationship with Jesus and our walk with Him. This affects so many different areas of our life. Trying to learn a new skill, trying to become proficient at something, gaining a goal. It's been amazing how many things we've realized this is so important for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like she said, it affects every aspect of your life and every endeavor that you take. One of those is business, and we're going to talk about many different things, but I want to start with talking about business because why are we talking about this, and how did this topic come up?
Yeah, how did we even start thinking about it?
Well, as most of you know, I run a business, Thrive Life, and I have a team that works under me, and I do a lot of training for them. And there are some of my team who want to learn how to build a YouTube channel so that they can market Thrive Life the way we do on our channel. So I have a complete training program for those who want to learn how to do YouTube. And I do, weekly Zoom trainings and all that kind of stuff. Just recently I realized that there were half a dozen people or so that 2 years ago came on board, and they were going through the training, and they were really excited about what they were doing. They were really motivated about it, and they got started, and then all of a sudden I realized I haven't seen them for a while. What happened to them? And that's when I realized that there's one thing that makes a difference between why do some people succeed and others try and don't. I realized they were motivated. They were passionate about what they were doing. But here's the thing. They weren't committed. So we want to talk about the difference between motivation and passion. I want to call them the same. Motivation, passion. They're a little different, but they're very similar.
Passion kind of has moved further along with motivation.
Right.
Where you can become passionate about
So,
something.
motivation versus commitment. These people were very motivated. They started their channel. They did a video a week for a while, and then when I realized they just disappeared, I went back and looked at their channel to see what happened. A number of them did one video a week, like I recommended, for 3 months, and
Yeah.
then they just disappeared. And I think it's because the motivation wore off, the passion wore off, the excitement wore off, and they got to a point where it was just drudgery or just work, and they had lost the vision, they had lost the motivation. Motivation isn't necessarily enough. And sometimes, when the excitement dies, you got nothing left. The only thing you've got left is the commitment to do it, whether you feel like it or not.
There are so many things in life that you start out with a bang, but then it doesn't stay necessarily so exciting, and then the hard stuff starts to happen. The stuff that just isn't as exciting. And when the hard stuff comes, that is when we realize whether or not we really are committed to making something happen. I saw a little thing recently where someone said, that life is always hard until it becomes easy, until it isn't.
Yeah.
But
I had other people who started, and they hit a dry spell where they lost their motivation, but they were committed. And so they still continued to come to my trainings, my live trainings with them, and to get the motivation or whatever. But the commitment got them through that dry time, and now many of them are starting to do quite well on their channel, with just building their YouTube channel.
we've shared before that after a year of us doing a video a week, we were up to 256 subscribers or
Yeah.
something like that, which is just, it, it's hard to maintain your vision, to maintain your commitment when you've worked for a year and that's what you see happening. But things have to start somewhere.
Right.
Everything starts kind of small and then has to grow. And so we were just thinking about how does commitment make a difference in our lives? And we thought of so many different ways. It's so far beyond just being able to be successful in some kind of a business. They're just very important things.
I think one of the biggest and most obvious ones is marriage relationships.
Yes.
Commitment. There's a certain time, when you first get married, you're excited, I don't want to say motivated, I'll say passionate.
Yeah, that's a good one for passionate.
But there's going
Twitter-pated.
to come a time when that passion wears off, where that Twitter passion, as she said, wears off.
Yeah,
There comes a time where you still love each other, but
of course.
the passion isn't there, and the only thing that you have left is the commitment to the relationship, the commitment to each other, the commitment to the vow that you made before God. And that's when that's where the rubber meets the road. You really have to dig in and discuss things and compromise and work on it. Marriage isn't easy. It takes a lot of work.
Well, and we're not trying to say that you just stop loving each other, or even that you stop just feeling very in love with each other. But life throws things at you. It gets harder. It's not. There's not a chance for everything to feel romantic or exciting. Pressures and stresses come. A marriage commitment isn't all about the wonderful, exciting stuff. It's about taking care of a baby that's waking you up every half an hour for days on end. It's somebody getting sick. It's being scared because you lose your job. It's somebody's cute little habit that you thought was the sweetest thing when you were, getting together that now drives you out of your mind. There's just the time comes where you have to have made a commitment that you're going to work out whatever you need to, whatever has to happen, you'll work it out. You'll hang in there. And we really are so grateful for this, Jesus being the center of that in our life, because he brings the strength in. There's just times when no matter how much you have loved a person, it boils down to commitment for a while, and you get through, and you don't fall out of love. You just sometimes have to remember and it's love isn't based on feelings. It's a commitment. It's a promise. It's a choice that we make. And so this whole idea, the difference between being motivated or even being passionate about something and being committed to it, is fundamental when it comes to a long-term relationship.
I think motivation or passion is a feeling, whereas a commitment is a decision.
Yes.
If I'm motivated about something, I'm excited about starting some new venture. I'm all excited about it. That's a feeling. I'm all passionate about what I'm doing. I ride bicycles. I ride 100 miles a day, and I'm passionate about it. I go out every day and ride bicycles. What happens when it rains? Do I still go out and ride? If I'm trying to do a certain number of miles a day, do I go out no matter what the weather? That's commitment.
Yeah, that's where it starts being different.
When your marriage starts to have some friction, what are you going to do about it?
And stresses.
Are you going to just give up because it's not working? Oh, it's just not working anymore. I'm going to have to go find something that's working.
All of a sudden you start thinking the grass looks greener on the other side, or you start thinking, that this is just getting too hard. We are coming up on 47 years now this summer, and of course there's been hard times during those years. But there is something, no matter what we're talking about here, there's something amazing about pushing through and staying committed and realizing what you gain from it,
Right.
and how much you have to learn and grow. And I really want to go so far as to say, in any of these things that we're talking about, you have to grow up, and you have to be willing to accept the harder things in life and work with them and go through it and be a grown-up about it, to be able to have the things in your life that are going to mean the most in the long run. And it's not always easy. I'm grateful that both of us, through everything in our lives, have been staying committed together. I realize that if someone is in a marriage that the other person is not willing to even try, or just doesn't have the commitment, then of course that person that wants to be committed is in a very bad situation. But and it requires a huge amount of prayer. But as a couple, if we can make the decision that we're going to go far beyond how we feel to what we choose, there's strength in that. There really is. Was there anything else you wanted to say? That then to me also leads into what I consider honestly to be the most important out of everything we're going to talk about today. Even though we started out with business and stuff, this is the most important. And that is, what's the difference between being motivated to serve Christ, to be a Christian, to have Him in our life, to listen to the Holy Spirit, even be passionate about it. But what's the difference between that and actually making a serious commitment to Him? It can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. I've seen so many people down through the years who accepted Christ and were really on fire for Jesus for 6 months or a year, and then they disappeared. Some difficult time came in their life, and they just weren't committed, and instead of relying on Him, they just went their own way. Yeah. And a Christian walk isn't all, roses.
Well, no. In fact, we're in a war, and the enemy goes after.
Absolutely, sometimes it just takes grit and commitment to stick to what you know to be true and to rely on Jesus no matter what. Mm-hmm. Especially as we come into the end times, Scripture talks about persecution and martyrdom and all that. That's all going to increase. That takes commitment.
Right, and it's happening in the world already.
It's happening all over the world already.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have to realize that if we're struggling with commitment because we just don't really feel like spending some time in the Word, or we don't really feel like going to fellowship at church with other people, we kind of just don't get around to praying. Or even more so, someone makes us feel uncomfortable if we're mentioning the name of Jesus or talking about Him. If that makes it too hard to keep going, then what in the world would happen if someone truly was saying you're going to lose your job? We're going to take away your kids. You're no longer going to be able to go to buy what you need, or we're going to shoot you in the head, or in some places cut your head off. I'm not exaggerating. This is really happening. And we have to realize that the Lord is worth everything we could ever lay our lives down for. He is worthy of our honor. He has given everything for us to be forgiven and to be able to be with Him. And it boils down to real commitment, and He can help us with that. The Holy Spirit can help us. But if we're just dabbling in it and if we're just trying to rely on our feelings, then we're going to give up when it gets hard. Mm. And praise the Lord that if we just make the choice, He'll give us the strength, and He'll give us the what we need to be able to continue to make the choice to serve Him, and lots of times of unexpected joy along the way.
Another area that commitment versus motivation makes a huge difference, and that's in learning a new skill.
Absolutely.
Elizabeth and I are both musicians. We love music. Yeah. I was in the Army band for 24 years. Elizabeth has taught piano and music for
voice
for decades.
And yes.
And we have both played and sung in worship bands all of our adult lives.
Yeah.
We love music. It's fun, but you know what? When you're first learning it, it's not necessarily so fun. When I first learned, when I was in 5th grade, I decided I wanted to learn the trombone, and I started taking some lessons. And the first time I learned how to actually read the music and play "Mary Had a Little Lamb," that was really exciting.
Yes.
But I wasn't proficient yet.
No.
I was excited, I was motivated, but I wasn't proficient. And there came a point a few months later where I still wasn't proficient, but the newness was starting to wear off.
And all of a sudden the crunch starts.
The motivation started to wear off. The excitement of this new thing that I was doing started to wear off. at that point, the only thing I had left was commitment. I'm going to learn this thing no matter what.
Yeah.
And so I stuck with it, and I stuck with it through my commitment until all of a sudden I was proficient enough to be able to play in the school band. And the first concert that I played in 5th grade, it was horrible.
Fifth grade concerts are the sweetest things. Oh.
It was so bad that our conductor cut us off right in the middle of a song and went on to the next song.
Nobody was on the same rhythm. Nothing was staying together.
But that was the Christmas concert. You know, like I started in September, and by December, the Christmas concert, we'd all only been playing a couple months. By the time we did the spring concert, we were a little bit better, and the concert was a little bit better. And you know what? It was fun.
Yeah.
Because I was then proficient enough to actually play along with the band, even though it still wasn't very good. I felt proud.
Yes.
And that motivated me once again to go on and continue. Years later, when I graduated from high school, I auditioned for the Army Band, and I was good enough that I actually passed the professional audition to get in there. But how did that happen? Because of the commitment I had in 5th
Yes.
grade to push through, no matter how bad it sounded.
Having taught piano for a very long time, decades, at first you learn some fun new things and it's really neat, but then the time comes where it's a language and you just have to learn it and you have to work at it, get your dexterity, your muscle memory, all of this learning done, because it's really like learning a new language as well as being able to play the instrument. But if I can encourage a student to keep going until they can start really reading the music and doing it on their own, and then they can grab a piece of music and sit down and be able to play it, then it's fun. You can really keep going. But so many times, for various reasons, they weren't able to continue, and I know that it was going to be very difficult for them to continue that good, hard crunch of learning without the motivation at all of having the lessons. Anytime we learn a language or learn how to do an instrument or learn how to do any skill, it just takes being committed to the point where you finally know that you know it. We can't just it doesn't work to put on a tape and go to sleep and it just soaks in by osmosis. You have to do it. You have to train your brain. You have to learn. And a point comes where it's just work. If you can push through that. I mean, I just love watching a good ballet dancer. Oh my goodness. Watching a ballet troupe. They look like it's effortless. They look like they can fly. Well, you know why? Is because they have hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of training and building strength and muscle.
And bleeding feet.
And terribly messed up feet and just any kind of a thing you look at, the ice skating or an incredible athlete of any kind, divers, things like that, they have put in the commitment and then they make it look easy. It's not easy, but they have worked with the hard until they can do it, and then their skills become possible and proportionally easy compared to what it used to be, where they can have the joy of just doing it. I love to sit and just play the piano. I didn't just wake up doing that one day. So there's all sorts of different things where it just, to gain something wonderful in our life, it takes commitment. I'm highly impressed with my brother-in-law, my sister's husband. I talk about Dana, my sister, quite a bit. Well, her husband, Rob, decided that he wanted to really pick the trombone back up. He hadn't played it since he was much, much younger.
Well, he played it in school when he was a kid.
Yeah. And so as adult, years later, he decided he's going to pick the trombone back up again. And he made a commitment that he was going to practice every day for at least a year. And I'd be talking to her on the phone, and I could hear him practicing. And he is a hard-working man, but he takes the time. And he has been digging in there and just working on it. Well, he's now playing with a community band. And I'm so proud of him because he just didn't give up. And now he's got something in his life that I think he really enjoys.
There are so many things like that we pick up as kids that adults feel like, oh, it's too late for me. I
know as a teacher for many, many years, I've taught people up to 77 years old. And, people say, well, if you dream it, you can achieve it or whatever. Well, if you want something really badly, find a way to be able to learn it. And don't let your age be a factor. There'll be some ways it'll be a little harder, and some ways it'll be easier as an adult. But it's not just dreaming it, it's doing the work. And if you do it, you can achieve it. And like I said, Rob has brought this back into his life now after all these years. And he can be a part of the band. I just think, I'm proud of him. I think it's really cool.
I guarantee you that the motivation for him wasn't necessarily always there to practice every single day.
Yeah, on day 198 and
But
232.
He was committed to doing that, and he pushed through, and he's gotten some measure of success by that.
Right. Yep.
And sports. I mentioned the bicycling.
Yes.
I used to be an avid bicyclist, which I have difficulty doing now ever since I tore the meniscus in my knee. I can't really ride. But I've done many thousands of miles touring on a bicycle with all of my camping gear strapped on the bike. She went with me on one of those trips. And
420 miles in 10 days. Woo.
Just camping along the way. I'd take 2 weeks and I'd go do 800 miles kind of thing.
870. I remember.
But as much as I enjoyed it and as much as I was motivated to do it, some days it rained. And
Or it was hot.
Or it was really hot. And I didn't want to ride in the rain, or I didn't want to ride in 105-degree weather. It was only the commitment to the end goal that kept me going.
Yeah. I will never in my life forget what I learned when we got that first tandem bicycle. Now, I had not ridden in a long time, and I've never considered myself very athletic. I am virtually undrownable. I'm a phenomenal swimmer. I took life-saving, all sorts of stuff. But as far as basic athletic stuff, I was, your basic nerd geek, growing up. And so Bill is a very natural athlete. So is our son. And so he would ride all these miles, and he wanted me to go with him, so we got a tandem, because otherwise he'd be waiting for me all the time, and all I would do is try to keep up. And so we got this tandem mountain bike. And believe me, he didn't haul me around. I had to really pedal for us to be able to work together. So we were doing this in a very mountainous area in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. Everything was hills. So, the first time we rode it, I about scared myself to death, and I was white as a sheet. And you know what my motivation was when we first got started? Bill said, no, we're going to buy this bike. And it cost a pretty good amount of money for the time for us. And you know what my motivation was when we first got started is, gosh, I can't waste this. I don't want to just waste the money. So I'm honest, about that. And so I went out with him, and we did 2 miles, and I had to rest twice.
On flat ground.
On flat ground. I had to rest twice, and I thought I was going to die. But then the next day we did 2 miles, and I only had to rest once. And then he started easing us into hills. And there was times when I ran out of glycogen, out of the glucose in my system. I would bonk. And if you've never had a bonk, it's quite an experience. You just run out of fuel.
Your legs turn to rubber.
Yeah, all your bones disappear. And he had to train me when to keep going, when to not give up, when to rest, when to drink. You have to drink before you're thirsty. You have to eat before you're hungry. It was day after day after day of just, let's try this hill now. Let's see if we can go to 3 miles and maybe 4 miles. And you can do this hill. Come on, we can try it. And it was good having a coach along with me, basically. But it was hard. I mean, my motivation to think this was a cool idea, even to make the bike worth the cost, wasn't there very long. But I saw slow progress, and I thought, you know what?
And that was starting early in the spring.
It was April.
Early summer.
Yeah, it was about April. And I wanted to be able to ride with him, so I became committed to being able to ride with him. And every now and then it was fun, but not very often.
But we very rarely missed a day,
Yes.
unless there was something going on, scheduling wise. And many times we actually went out. We were on back roads. We went out and rode after dark.
Yeah, with good lights.
That's how committed we were to it.
Yeah.
We had lights on the bike,
So yeah, it was quiet little roads, and it was like, well, we haven't ridden today. We just need to go do it. And so we hung in there unless something absolutely prevented it. And he hung in there with me. I'm sure it wasn't always exciting trying to get me to learn what I was doing. But anyway, I said that to say that many, many, many daily rides later, we started in April. This was, April, May, June. It was, I think,
It was in August, right?
yeah, it was like 5 months later. After we had started, it was been about 5 months. We took the bike over to the path. It's all along the shore in New Jersey, along the ocean, and I rode my first 50-mile day with him on that bike. And I'll guarantee you, he does not pull me along. I'm just not. If he was, a big, huge bruiser and I was a little bitty thing, even at that, you have to help in the back. I have to ride. I had to push hard. And I did my first 50-mile day. And I was astounded. And when I accomplished that, that was fun. That was motivating. I felt passionate about it. But it never would have happened if the hard days, if we just let them fritter away. And that's where it became commitment, because otherwise it never would have happened.
And tell them about the big weekend in New York.
Oh yeah, I was so astounded by this. This was, I think, right before we went on the 420-mile trip together. We went up to New York. I just couldn't believe this. It was so cool. Our son-in-law rode along with us, and the first day we were there, we did 40 miles. The second day we were there, we did 50 miles. And the third day, that Monday, it was Labor Day or Memorial Day or something, we did 72 miles.
In one day.
In one day, on a bicycle. Not a motorcycle, a bicycle. My son-in-law came up and he goes, "Wow, Mom," how did he put it? He says, anyway, he was highly
Basically just said, "You rock."
You rock, yeah. Wow, Mom, you rock. But it was a lot of small rides for a long, long time. Life is hard by the yard. I used to tell my students it's a trial by the mile, but it's a cinch by the inch. And
now,
I never would have expected that, but it was commitment that made the difference.
After that, I was doing long distance bicycle touring on a regular basis. And after that, she went on one with me on one of my trips. Now, we didn't do as many miles as I do by myself.
Of course not.
I do generally anywhere between 80 and 120 miles a day. She and I were doing more like 50 to 60.
Yeah, like I would say 40 to 60,
yeah.
Right around in there. Now tell him what happened at least once every single day of that trip. We were riding, the seat was as comfortable as we could make it, but I don't think we missed a day where he didn't realize that I was crying. I mean, because I hurt,
We started in Buffalo, New York.
Yeah. No, we started in Cleveland, Ohio.
I'm sorry, you're right. Cleveland, Ohio, and then we rode through Buffalo. And then we ended just east of Rochester, New York. As we were riding through Rochester, there were canals all through there and bicycle paths down by there. And we were riding on those things, and it was beautiful. Mm-hmm. And she was crying again, and I'm thinking, oh, she's in so much pain, So I said, "What's wrong?" And you said, what?
I knew this was our last day. And I started crying. I'm like, "I can't believe it's done. I can't believe we gotta stop tomorrow." I was just heartbroken. I couldn't believe it was my last day. We would get somewhere and we'd be at 49.5 miles, and I'd make him go in circles around a parking lot. I'm not kidding, to make sure we hit 50 miles that day. The sense of accomplishment, and just the joy of doing an adventure like that, which is something I never thought I ever would be able to do. It was worth it. It was worth all the commitment that it took. And we have to tell you, that has never been the same since that point. We kept riding, but then I had the stroke, which wasn't from high blood pressure or overdoing it. It was blood clots. But what a joy to be able to do that. So yeah, I was crying the last day, but it was because I had to quit.
The one other area that commitment is essential is in fitness. If you have any kind of a workout routine or anything like that, like I mentioned earlier, if you commit to ride the bicycle every day, are you going to go ride in the rain? If you commit to running at 5:30 every morning, are you going to be motivated to get up every morning? Not necessarily, especially if it's cold and rainy. it's the commitment that makes the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm doing many different business things all the time. And right now I'm working with a business coach who's helping me with some things that I'm doing. And I mentioned the concept of motivation versus commitment. And she went, "Ooh, that's good." And then I said, you can be motivated, but what happens when the motivation, I was talking about business, but when the motivation dies, if you're not committed, you're going to quit. And I said, that is in many aspects of your life. And she said, absolutely. She said, I am committed to doing jiu-jitsu. I think it was jiu-jitsu.
One of the martial arts.
At least 3 days a week. But she said, I don't always feel like doing that. You know why? It hurts. But she said, I'm committed to it, so I do it.
Yeah.
So there's, she's working on her fitness. She's working on a skill, jiu-jitsu. She's not always motivated, but she is committed, and that's the only reason that she still does it.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to stay on some kind of a weight loss program, or you're going to the gym and working out, or anything like that, when you first start, you're motivated, you're excited about it. After a while, you get into the drudgery of it, and it's only because of your commitment that you can continue.
I can think of one other time where I'm so grateful for commitment because I'll be real honest. I'm certainly never, I've struggled with different health things and I've never been like super athletic, although I've worked on things, like I said. But one of the things I've always loved is swimming. And in college, I would just go swim a mile a day. And that sounds like I guess to some people, a big deal, but I loved it. And it was just something as soon as I was done with my classes, I just went and swam a mile. And then through the years, it's been hard to always maintain something like that because of availability, But there was a period of time after I was getting much, much better from the initial stroke where I decided I'm going to get back to swimming again. And we had a pool available to me. And I went in, and Bill would go with me sometimes. And he told me, he says, he said, there's nothing fun about this. He said, once you start, you just keep going. He said he'd be bored out of his mind. And I was just doing laps, just laps and laps and laps. And I'd gotten up to 0.8 of a mile. And you just get in, and I just wasn't going to stop until I met my goal because I love swimming and I wanted that ability back again. And it was just about that time where it turned out, and I had just gotten a brand new, less baggy, I wear really like old lady 1910 swimming suits, and mine was so worn out and so baggy, and I'd just gotten a new one. I was wearing it the first time this day when there was just a couple other people in the pool. There was no lifeguard. It was just a little resort, and where a man was drowning. And I was able to go. I didn't do everything right, but I was strong enough that I was able to get him out. And when he grabbed me and tried to take me down, which drowning people do, I had a swimming suit on that he didn't get tangled up in it like he could have. And I had enough strength to get that grown man out into the shallow and get him out of the water. Like I said, there's things I should have done differently, but I was grateful that I had the strength into my 60s, to be able to do that. And right after that, I had another pretty bad TIA and had to start back over from scratch. But I'm so grateful that the love that I have for swimming had turned into a commitment to reach a goal of a mile. And even though I can't do that right now, there was a time right then where I was so grateful that I had that strength, because it would have been the worst thing in the world to be running around trying to find somebody to help and know that man was dying. I'm just so grateful that I was able to help him. And that I have to realize it just comes from all of those laps back and forth and back and forth. And, I couldn't do it now, but I was so grateful I could do it then. Yeah. I just now thought of that. Yeah.
So, bottom line is that in whatever endeavor you're doing, why is it that some people succeed and some people don't? Why is it that some people succeed in business and some don't? Some people succeed in a workout regimen and some don't. Motivation and excitement and passion is not enough. You've got to have yourself committed.
Let's rephrase that a little bit. But yeah, it takes commitment. I know that both of us can realize there's things in our life that we didn't do very well with because we didn't maintain commitment.
Right.
And we're really trying to learn from that too. What in my life do I need to go from just do I feel like it to I'm committed to it. And we were just realizing as we've discussed this, what incredible difference it makes, over the course of time. And we're not the best examples in the world all the time. We just want to share with you the differences that we have seen for ourselves in things where there has actually been commitment.
Right. So if you want to be successful in anything that you're doing, don't rely on motivation, don't rely on passion, don't rely on excitement. All of those things are good, and that's what will launch you, but don't rely on that. Those are all feelings.
Right.
Make a decision
Yeah.
to commit to what you're doing. And eventually, as you gain proficiency, that excitement will come back again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I really try to share sometimes is that, we have a mind, a will, and emotions. That makes up our personality, our soul, our mind, our will, and our emotions. And emotions quite often are very dominating in any of our lives. Anger, love, anger, fear, just so many things. But if we make a choice in our mind as to what we really want to do, especially as a believer, what does God want me to do? And if we set our will, our choices to do that, the emotions have to come along and get in line. They will. If our will is the engine of a train and the emotions are the caboose, it will come and line up. And it really makes a difference. Do I choose to love whether I feel it? And as soon as I choose it, you'd be surprised how often the feeling comes back. So I hope that makes sense. It's really been a very valuable thing to understand.
So I hope this discussion has been helpful or encouraging to you in some way. If you're struggling with something that you're trying to do, commit to it. Make a decision to commit to it and to press forward no matter what happens. And you will be amazed at how it can turn that thing around for you.
Yeah. Little step by little step by little hard step. Doing those hard but simple things of just saying, I'm just going to do it whether I feel like it or not, because there's some place I want to be, a goal or something I want to have in my life.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I see that our battery's about to run out, so I guess we're done.
Okay.
So I hope that has been helpful. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, live simple.
Live free. You be blessed.
We really do love you guys. Thank you for being a part of our life, and we will be back soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.